Hello everybody, my name is Jacob and welcome to my new weekly series where I will be teaching you how to build, base, and paint your Wargaming miniatures. While this episode is more of an introduction to the channel, I will be covering the first step to painting a decent mini, so stick around. So I started painting minis about 3 years ago, and since then I've painted well over 200 models, whether it's for my own collection or for commission work. I didn't start off very good. Some of my models were really rough, especially this little ogre guy that I did. God, he's disgusting. But since then, I've asked a lot of questions, I've gotten to know a lot of really good painters, and now I'm happy with where I'm at. Along the way, I've made a ton of mistakes. I've melted plastic cups and styrofoam cups with epoxy. I've ruined bases. I've ruined models. I've glued magnets together, snapped magnets. I mean, if you name it, I've probably done it. So what this channel is all about, especially this weekly series, is showing you the mistakes that I've made, and hopefully you can learn from those and not make them when you're painting your models. This is great for new painters, but also I'm gonna offer a couple tips that might be helpful for those of you who have been in the hobby for a while and you're kind of hitting these speed bumps and you might not even know it. So the first mistake that I made when getting into this hobby was not knowing which layer of the model to start with. Unlike canvas painting, we're working with three-dimensional models, so you have to really consider that before you just jump in and start throwing paint down. When I'm talking about layers, what I'm trying to say is that a model has parts that either stick up further than other parts, hang over other parts, are sunken in and are hard to reach, and if you paint them in the wrong order, it's going to make things very difficult for you. You're going to end up putting paint where you don't want it to be. Certain things are going to spill over, certain washes are going to run into areas that you really don't want washed. Let's take a look at my current project. This Bastillodon from Age of Sigmar is primed and ready to go, but before I start painting him, I must decide the order in which different parts of him get painted. I've decided to start with the stones under his feet because I know that I want to dry brush them. For those of you who have been in the hobby for a little while, or you're old veteran painters, this isn't anything new to you. At least it might not be. But for those of you who are starting out and maybe never consider this, this is going to make a huge difference in the amount of time that it's going to take you to paint these models, and also the amount of cleanup you're going to have to do along the way. So as I mentioned, I want to start with dry brushing the stones. And for those of you who don't know what dry brushing is, it's the act of applying a tiny bit of paint to your brush, removing most of the paint, and then gently brushing a surface so that the paint only transfers to the edges or the raised surface of the desired space. While dry brushing is very useful and gives a really cool effect, it comes with a high risk of transferring paint to places where you might not want that color to be. For example, let's say that I want to dry brush the mat on this rat centaur guy from Reaper Minis. If I start with the upper layer, get it just how I want, and then move to the lower layer and dry brush, the paint from the dry brushing gets all over the nice upper layer that I just finished. Now, I could easily touch up those spots with a little bit of red paint, reblend, do a couple highlights, but that takes a lot of time and pushes me away from my pile of minis that I have to complete. Now, just to show that I really didn't consider this layer idea when I first started painting, you can look at my Captain Artemis from my Death Watch. You'll see that it shows. I should have painted his cape before his foot, because now it sort of looks like he stepped in dog poop. And that's just a minor example. I've touched up this model maybe 9-10 months ago, and it was rough. Even the bottom of his cape has a spot that I couldn't even reach because he was pre-glued, and I didn't take out the time to consider his layers before I started painting. So looking back at my Bastillodon, we're going to break it down into layers. The stones are the first layer. Since I want to dry brush, and I know that dry brushing is really messy, I definitely want to do them first. If a little bit of the white or gray paint gets onto the feet, that's fine, because I can always touch up those areas when I'm painting the legs. The next layer that I want to paint is the skin. The skin is located in very hard to reach places, like between the plates on the underbelly. If I get a little bit of that skin color onto the plates, that's okay, because I can always touch that up later when I do the third layer, which are the plates. Painting in that order is going to save me a ton of time, and it's going to save me the risk of accidentally getting paint in places where I don't want paint to be. So one of the most important points is when considering layers of a model, try to always work inside out. Paint the tongue and the mouth first, and then move to the teeth. And likewise, work from the bottom up, like painting the feet of the Bastillodon first, and then painting the top plates. This way you can touch up the paint on any of the hard to reach places. Considering layers before painting will save you a ton of time and effort. And for new and old painters alike, you'll see that the quality and speed at which you paint will increase tremendously. If you've made it to the end of this video, thank you. Episode 1 was more of an introduction with a little tip thrown in there to get things going, but this weekly series is really going to dive into the mistakes that I've made and are going to help you just become a better painter. I really hope that this first video helps you out, and if it does, feel free to share your work with me at the Dry Paint Pot at the links listed below on Facebook and Instagram. Now wash your brushes, clean your paint pots, and keep on painting.